for tuning back in. Here's part 2 of Tacking Up.
So, I have my cinch, and you can see there's also rings. There's 2 rings on the Western cinch. One could be for the breast collar in the front. One could be from a rear flank strap. If you use a rear flank strap on your horse, you must connect the front and back cinches. So this is called the long latigo for obvious reasons. All right, so we're going to, I love these cinches. I have one for mine. We're going to go through the top roller, and we're going to go down through the hole. This is called a cinchman's knot. We're going to go back up and down. And ideally you want to do it at least twice, which is why you've got such a long latigo. So now I'm going through the bottom one, and then I'm going to gently pull up, again in increments. I don't want to yank on it, especially with this, with the rollers, because you can really over cinch your horse quickly, and then you get a horse that every time you come near it to cinch it, you're going to have some body language. Maybe the ears lay back, maybe she tries to turn around and get your hand because you've hurt her when you have tightened the cinch too quickly. So just little steps at a time. So we're going to take the tail, we're going to go towards the nose, back towards the tail, up through the ring, and then back down and make a nice knot. Now there are buckles. I personally never use a buckle. I don't think you can get the right kind of adjustment. As you can see, there's 3 inches or so in between where the holes are, and you can't get a perfect fit. So I just went up a little bit more, and then I'm going to retighten it. And again, I'm going to do my tack check to where I should be able to get 2 fingers in between. So same thing, you want to do a tack check as far as making sure everything's nice and tidy. This actually goes up through here and should be tied around tightly. All right, so this stirrup has a little bit bigger platform than our English stirrup does. A lot of that is due to the fact that, you know, when you're Western trail riding, or, you know, the cowboys back in the old day or whatever, they needed a bigger platform than just the English iron. It's just more comfortable when you're in the saddle multiple hours. This is a S-hook, so that is a safety feature where the safety feature always goes to the outside so that your foot can slide out easily. And you can see the fender on the Western is way wider and stiffer than the English stirrup leathers. Like the English saddle, we have a pommel and a cantle. However, as you see, this is built up a little bit more, and we have an added feature, which is our horn. It is not a panic handle, although people have used them as panic handles. It was designed initially for the rope. When the cowboy would catch a steer, he would tie it off to the horn, and the horse would back up and pull the rope taut. The cantle is built up a little bit higher. Again, this is more comfort, but also it's functional in the fact that when your horse is going up a steep hill, it'll keep you a little bit more seated. Same way with this, if you're going down a steep hill, this kind of keeps you from going forward on your horse's neck. A lot of the other pieces of the saddle are the same. There's skirts and jockeys and various parts to the saddle. If you have a cantle bag or even a pommel bag, there are places to tie them off so that they don't slip off the back of your horse. This is what we would attach our back cinch to. If you have way too much latigo, when you're done adjusting it, you would want to bring it up through there and out of your way so that your foot didn't get caught up in the latigo. All right, so that's basic saddling, both English and Western. There's multiple reasons why you would ride either one. A lot of us ride both. All right, so we're going to attach our reins to our hybrid halter. We had talked about that before. A lot of programs and lessons that we're teaching soft hands, okay, but the student hasn't quite gotten to not pulling very hard with a bit in their mouth. We want to use a hybrid halter. So I'm going to take this and put it over her neck. And with a Western saddle, we're lucky because we can drape it over the horn so that it's not going to drag on the ground and our horse step in it. So our safety feature on these reins is a clip. You always want to put the safety feature to an outside, whether it be your stirrup, your reins, and that is in case of an emergency and an instructor would need to come by and disconnect the rein from the halter. We're going to bridle our horse now. A bridle is different than a halter in that this has a bit. This is what we call a leverage bit because it's got the drop here. A lot of people think that the mouthpiece is what makes it leverage. This happens to be curb, but the leverage comes from the drop bars. With a snaffle bit, and we'll show you one of those in a minute, 1 pound of pressure on a snaffle bit equals 1 pound of pressure on the horse's mouth. Depending on the length of the shank, it can be 1 to 5, and it could be even more severe. All right, so I'm going to put the reins over my horse's head, and then that way she knows she's caught, and also if my horse were to walk away when I was bridling her, I have something to hold on to so that she doesn't walk away on me. And then I'm going to slip her halter off, and I like to put my hand over the crown and then I'm going to stick my thumb in the back of her mouth, and I'm going to ask her to open, and then I'm going to pull up, and I'm going to put the far ear in first, and then the near ear. This piece here is called a curb strap. Okay, that engages when you pull the reins back. The bit engages, and you can see the strap also tightens underneath her mouth. And we have a throat latch. Obviously this is the throat of our horse, so that's why it's called a throat latch. It is designed to keep the bridle from going up over the horse's head where they to put their head down and shake the bridle off. So as you can see, as we engage the bit, it puts pressure, that metal bar puts pressure on the roof, and again the curb strap puts pressure on the chin. This is not Pumpkin's bridle. We are using this bridle for demonstration purposes. Since we have her in Western tack, we wanted to show a Western bridle. This is split reins. They are tied together. This is meant for neck reining. Okay, I'm not sure if Pumpkin neck reins or not, but so as you can see, it takes just a little bit to engage, which is why we use the hybrid halter for people who have not learned to be soft with their hands. When we go to take our bridle off, and again, I'm going to put this over the horn. I still have my reins in case she decides to walk away. Sometimes I'll even loop my arm through it. So we're going to, anytime you have keepers, make sure that your tack is in the keepers. Now I'm going to let her give me the bit. So I'm going to slip it over her ears. I'm going to put my hand under her mouth and I'm going to just gently lower it. And as you can see, she spit the bit out to me rather than me taking the bit out of her mouth. And that way we don't cling their teeth. If you start banging a horse's tooth on a regular basis or even just every once in a while, that's another issue that they're not going to want you to bridle them. All right, we're going to move on to an English bridle. This is obviously not hers because it's way too big for her head. This actually belongs to a Clydesdale cross. Western, we have a crown piece, we have a throat latch. This is goes across here just like on our Western. This is a cavesson and the flash. The cavesson goes across the nose. The flash ends up kind of keeping the bit in check so that the horse can't open their mouth really wide and grab the bit and take off with this. All right, so we don't have a shank and our reins are connected directly to the ring. This is what we call a loose ring, and this is a French link, much nicer bit. This is where we would have our direct one-to-one pressure as opposed to with the shank a higher ratio of pressure. So the myth is that your snaffle or your non-leverage bit is easier on a horse. To a degree that is correct. However, it's all in the hands of the rider. And so we want to be very aware that this is metal and it is in their mouth. And we want to use the least amount of pressure that we need or can, but the most that we actually need to. This is kind of our horse's brakes outside of using our seat and our legs. So again, just like with the leverage bit, this bit or any bit can be harsh if not used correctly, which again is why in most therapeutic programs and beginner lessons we choose to use the hybrid halter until we develop feel in the horse and rider in their hands so that we're not being cruel to our horses. All right, so I have a couple cookies, which she's obviously very aware of. Since she was such a good girl and very quiet during the demo, I always want to use a pan. If we use our fingers, that looks a lot like baby carrots. It also creates a bad habit of our horse constantly putting their mouth on us, and we don't want that to happen. So
obviously she's going for the pan and
yes,
not you.
She's like, sure.
She's definitely going for the pan, fortunately, and not my hands. So thank you again, and have a great afternoon.